Emily, is Grandpa behaving himself?
Ah, yes. Well, sort of.
It's really troublesome when the elderly get injured, isn't it? I wish he'd consider our situation and not wander around so much.
Mother-in-law, that's not a nice thing to say.
It's fine. He's quite senile now. I can't handle the hassle of elderly care anyway, but you're used to it, so you're probably fine.
The other day, our grandfather-in-law fell in the garden and hurt his leg. It's not a serious injury, but he's already 82 years old. Because of his age, we're taking precautions to make sure he doesn't move around too much, make things worse, so he's been resting in bed. Rather than offering to help, the mother-in-law doesn't even try to go near Grandpa's room. I am Emily, 30 years old. I got married 3 years ago and have been living with my husband's family ever since. My husband was my superior at the company where I worked, which was founded by his grandfather. When I joined the company years ago, my father-in-law was already the president, and the grandfather-in-law was the chairman. However, at that time, the grandfather-in-law, even as chairman, was still responsible for all the important tasks and duties of the company. Then, 2 years ago, when he turned 80, he remained chairman, but started to delegate most of his visible duties to my father-in-law.
Father-in-law, thank you for all your hard work until now. From now on, please leave the company matters to my family, and you just take it easy.
The mother-in-law smiled as she said this, but to me those words sounded rather sarcastic. The grandfather-in-law is a bit stubborn, but a kind person with integrity, and is well respected. On the other hand, my father-in-law seems not to have broken his childish habits, never really stating his own opinions, and is quite unreliable compared to grandfather. And he tends to be too submissive to whatever my mother-in-law says. My grandmother-in-law has already passed away, and I never had the chance to meet her. My husband and I began dating when we worked together on the same product planning team in my 3rd year at the company. As a team leader, he was somewhat self-righteous, but he seemed reliable to me at the time. Having lost my father early on and being raised by a single mother, I might have wanted an extra sense of reliability. My mother also passed away from illness 2 years ago, leaving me with no other family but my in-laws. After my marriage, my mother fell ill and became in need of care. That's when I decided to leave my job and take care of her. The fact that my husband's family said nothing about it was probably due to something my grandfather-in-law had said.
It's only natural to take care of your mother who raised you by herself through many hardships. Take care of her without any worries.
Thanks to him, I was able to be by my mother's side without any financial worries until she passed away a year later. Although my mother-in-law seemed a bit unsatisfied, I was truly grateful. However, since the grandfather-in-law left the company in the hands of my father-in-law, everyone's attitudes towards him has gradually changed. They no longer listened to his opinion as before, treating him carelessly, almost dismissively. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but observing the attitudes of my mother-in-law and husband, I couldn't help but mind their attitudes. My father-in-law has a non-confrontational attitude, but it feels like he's just turning a blind eye. It's as if they're saying there's no need for the grandfather-in-law who's practically retired from the company. Watching the way my in-laws treat him, I can't help but feel annoyed. Hey, don't you think your mother and you are being cold to Grandpa?
So what if we are?
Even when Grandpa tries to talk to you, you hardly respond. You don't even try to help him.
Who has the time to deal with an old man? You should take care of Grandpa since you have so much free time anyway.
You don't have to speak to me like that.
Be quiet. I'm tired from work. Don't nag me with trivial matters.
No matter what I say, they won't seriously consider it. The grandfather-in-law doesn't say anything special in return. Now I'm almost the only one who talks to the grandfather-in-law in the house. Grandpa, the weather is nice today. How about we go for a little walk? Your legs seem to be getting better. It could be good rehabilitation.
Thank you. Maybe I will step out for a bit.
When we go to the park, there are several families with children, and the kids are frolicking around. The grandfather-in-law squints at the scene.
John and Mike used to have times like these.
Grandpa?
I was too busy with work and couldn't take care of the children much. Maybe that's why John couldn't raise Mike properly.
The grandfather-in-law looks a bit sad, muttering almost to himself. John is my father-in-law, and Mike is my husband. I wonder how to get everyone to be kinder to the grandfather-in-law, but I can't think of a good idea. As I was thinking this, my parents-in-law suggested building a new house for the grandfather-in-law.
This house is over 50 years old, right? The layout is inconvenient, and instead of spending money on remodeling, I think it's better to build a modern house in a more convenient location.
A new house?
You're getting on in years, father-in-law, and you were lucky to have just injured yourself last time, but you never know what could happen. Look, if you needed care, a barrier-free house wouldn't cause any trouble.
I see.
If it's better, we could place your room in the center so everyone can easily take care of you.
That's not a bad idea.
That's right. So, we've agreed, right? And about the cost of it?
If it's a house for everyone, including me, I'll arrange it. I'll talk to Aaron, so please consult with him about the financial aspects.
You are incredible indeed. Thank you so much,
said my mother-in-law with a happy smile. It seems to me that she only cozies up when there's money to be received. Still, if moving to a new house means that everyone will cherish the grandfather-in-law, I think there's nothing more I could ask for. Aaron is the company's legal advisor, but he also manages the grandfather-in-law's personal assets. The grandfather-in-law hired him as a company advisor because of his character, almost 30 years ago it seems. He's currently 58 years old, and is the person whom the grandfather-in-law trusts the most. Although I've met him many times, the word integrity suits him perfectly. He always looks after the grandfather-in-law's health, and sometimes seems more like a son than his real son. Even just by watching, it's clear how much Aaron admires the grandfather-in-law, almost as if he were his real father. Having such people around the grandfather-in-law makes me feel a little relieved. I wasn't aware of where the house discussions were heading or what kind of house they were planning to build, but my mother-in-law was in a great mood, looking through interior design magazines and talking about various things, so it seemed to be going well. Then, an incident occurred. It was discovered that the grandfather-in-law had a debt of $1,300,000.
Wait, what's this about $1,300,000?
According to Aaron, it seems that the grandfather-in-law had become a guarantor for a loan to a friend's company, but it looks like the friend's company is in danger, and the debt could end up on the grandfather-in-law's shoulders.
Hold on. You're not saying they could seize the house that's under construction, are you?
Since the contract has already been completed, and it's in the president's name, as you mentioned, madam, there should be no problem,
Aaron answered. Hearing those words, my mother-in-law breathed a sigh of relief.
Ah, that's a relief. It was good that we did as I said.
While listening to this conversation, I learned for the first time that the house was in my father-in-law's name. Although the grandfather-in-law provided the money, the fact that it was cunningly put under my father-in-law's name seemed just like something my mother-in-law would do. I can't help but question why there's no consideration of giving up the house to pay back even a little of the debt if the grandfather-in-law is in such trouble.
Hey, this debt is due to father-in-law's doing, and it has nothing to do with us or the company, right?
Well, it was signed in the chairman's personal name.
Ah, that's a relief. Then there's no problem.
I don't understand what's good about this, but while we were discussing this, the grandfather-in-law didn't say anything, so I didn't interject either. After all, it's not an amount I could do anything about. And then a few days later, the grandfather-in-law's demeanor started to change gradually. Grandpa, what would you like for lunch?
Who are you calling Grandpa? I'm only 50 years old. I don't deserve to be called that by you.
Eh?
Oh, my apologies. It was Emily, right? I was just lost in thought.
At first, I thought he might have been deep in thought, but as it continued to happen, I began to feel a growing anxiety.
Rose, what are you doing? Where's my meal?
Grandpa, I'm Emily. Rose is your daughter-in-law, and you've already had your meal earlier.
I haven't eaten. Are you trying to starve me?
Perhaps the onset of such behavior from the grandfather-in-law was triggered by the $1,300,000 debt. Seeing that no one in the family seemed willing to help may have given him a double shock. I wonder what could be done to help. I tried to take my grandfather-in-law to the hospital, but he refused to go. He might not want to admit that he could have dementia. I don't want to force him, but I can't handle this on my own. When I consult my husband, his response is as if it's none of his business. I can't rely on my mother-in-law either. At this point, I thought the only person I could turn to was my father-in-law.
Yeah, I've heard from Rose and Mike. You think he's gone senile?
Could you come with us to the hospital?
But it's not that bad yet, is it? If we go to the hospital, everyone will find out. Imagine the gossip about my father having dementia.
There are good medication available now that can slow down the progression.
Well, there's no need to rush. Let's just wait and see. We have you, Emily, so everything should be fine, right?
I can't believe how unreliable they are. I can't depend on these people. Grandpa, let's go to the hospital. Let's get you checked out properly.
Who are you? Where are you trying to take me? You're up to no good.
The stubbornness is there, but when I think of the kind grandfather he was, I feel like crying. But my mother-in-law just laughs, as if it's amusing.
Even though he's the chairman, it's all over now. He's become like this. And with this, everything, including the company, will belong to our people.
Rose, Grandpa isn't completely out of it. He's listening properly.
He'll forget everything soon enough, wandering off incontinence. Just thinking about it makes me shudder. He's nothing but a burden now.
How can you say such a thing? Grandpa has worked hard for the family his whole life. I feel a mix of anger and sadness at my mother-in-law's words, but my grandfather-in-law just smiles.
See, this old man doesn't understand anything.
Rose! Feeling angry at the laughing mother-in-law, I still can't help but hope that things might change once we move into the new house. Since it's a house that my grandfather-in-law built, maybe, just maybe, my in-laws will show some gratitude and be kinder to him. I can't completely let go of this faint hope. 2 months later, the house was finally completed. I've been forced to pack the belongings of my parents-in-law and my husband for days, while hardly anything has been done with my grandfather-in-law's or my own things. Even when I try to pack my stuff, my parents-in-law and husband keep giving me errands, so I can't make any progress. I also thought that since this house isn't going away, it would be okay to move the small things gradually later on. On the moving day after most of the belongings were moved, I was about to call my grandfather-in-law when my husband said to me,
"Oh, you and the old man don't have to come.
Huh?
You can keep living in this house as you are."
We don't need unnecessary baggage in the new house.
In short, you and the old man are going to continue living here, and you'll inherit all the grandfather's debts, too.
Well, you can at least be a housekeeper.
Hey, we're leaving now.
Yes, I'm coming. Take care of the debt repayment and live-in caregiving, will you?
Saying that, my in-laws left lightly, stepping into the car. I was dumbfounded for a while, unable to digest what had just happened. It means we've been left behind, both my grandfather-in-law and I. They're intending to live in the new house without us. It took me a while to understand because it was beyond my imagination that anyone could do something so cruel. How should I explain this to my grandfather-in-law? I walked back to the inner room, feeling defeated. I don't mind taking care of my grandfather-in-law at all. I intended to do so from the start. As I nervously tried to speak to him, sitting with his back to me, he seemed to sense my presence and turned around before I could say anything.
Have they left already?
The expression on my grandfather-in-law's face as he spoke was completely different from the absent-minded look he had before. It was as if he was a different person. I wondered if a different symptom had appeared, but in the next moment, my grandfather-in-law smiled brightly. What he said next completely astounded me. While I was still talking with my grandfather-in-law, Aaron came along.
Chairman, have you finished the big cleaning? Ah, it's all done. Now, shall we get going?
Wait, where are we going?
To our new home, of course.
Still confused, I left the house I had lived in up until then with my grandfather-in-law. The following month, I received incessant calls from my mother-in-law and husband. Although my grandfather-in-law said he wouldn't deal with them anymore, considering the divorce to proceed, I decided to answer my husband's call.
Hey, Emily, is grandfather with you? When I went to the old house, it was up for sale. There's no way that place is worth $1,300,000. He can't settle that. Is that why he did such a thing?
What did we do?
Put grandfather on the phone. Dad's saying he can't get in touch at all. That senile old man, he's done something outrageous.
I actually knew what was going on, but I thought I'd listen to what my husband had to say.
The old man sold his shares in the company to the senior managing director. Now the SMD has become the majority shareholder, and they held a shareholders meeting and a board meeting to dismiss Dad as president.
But the senior managing director is well respected, and maybe grandfather thought it would be better to hand over the company to him.
The senior managing director tricked that senile old man into selling his shares, didn't he? This can't be valid.
It seems like you're misunderstanding something, but grandfather isn't senile at all. In fact, he seems to be more alert than before.
What?
Even I had seriously thought until that moving day that my grandfather-in-law had dementia. It seems that since the time my mother-in-law suggested building a house to live together, my grandfather-in-law had been suspicious whether they were truly intending to build a home to live with him. He came up with a plan, pretending to be senile. He observed how his in-laws and husband would react. As expected, they all showed their true colors and ended up leaving my grandfather-in-law and me behind.
I had a hard time keeping myself from laughing, seeing everything unfold just as I expected,
my grandfather-in-law said. I felt a mix of surprise and relief, though my feelings were complicated.
To deceive your enemies, start with your allies,
he said with a laugh. It seems he was also keeping up with the company's affairs through updates from the senior managing director and Aaron. With my grandfather-in-law gone, my father-in-law and husband did as they pleased. They were autocratic, completely ignored the employees' opinions, and indulged in entertainment at the company's expense. My grandfather-in-law had handed over the company to my father-in-law, but he had concerns about its future, which led him to take such measures. In the end, he decided he couldn't entrust it to his son, and chose to hand it over to the senior managing director instead.
What about the $1,300,000 in debt?
That's gone now. Indeed, my grandfather-in-law had been a guarantor for a friend's debt, but he also had personal assets that surpassed that debt. After stepping back from the company's operations, he made substantial profits from real estate investments. There were no issues, but if I had mentioned that, it was obvious that my mother-in-law and husband would target those assets. That's why I only spoke about the debt. This friend was the son of a benefactor whom my father-in-law had been indebted to in his youth. Moreover, since then, the land owned by the son in the countryside was slated for resort development, sold at a high price, and the debt no longer needed to be repaid.
Seriously?
But more importantly, are you guys okay?
No, we're not okay. Both Dad and I were ousted from the company. What the hell are we supposed to do now?
Well, you still have the mortgage to worry about, right?
Huh? What do you mean, the mortgage?
Eh? You still haven't realized it?
The family's finances should have all been taken care of by Grandpa, right?
Don't you remember what Grandpa said back then? When my mother-in-law spoke to my grandfather-in-law about the money, he said,
"If it's a home where everyone lives together, I'll contribute."
That implied, if it wasn't the case, he wouldn't contribute. Even if the house was in my father-in-law's name, my grandfather-in-law was prepared to contribute if it meant everyone living together. You all just assumed Grandpa would pay and didn't bother to check the documents properly, did you? Signing without confirming everything. It just shows your father really didn't have the makings of a president, did he?
That can't be.
After all, it turned out that my parents-in-law couldn't pay off the mortgage for the house they had built and had to let it go. Now they live in an old apartment over 50 years old and are chased by the payments of the mortgage they couldn't settle. They've called, one after the other, suggesting we all live together, but that's out of the question now. My grandfather-in-law has retired as chairman and now lives with me in an old country house he bought.
Emily, you should go and live freely wherever you want. You don't have to worry about living expenses.
My grandfather-in-law had said, but I chose to stay with him. If it's not too much trouble, may I stay with you? Grandfather's eyes welled up with tears when I said that. Thanks to Erin, my divorce was finalized, and my former father-in-law and ex-husband were excluded from the inheritance. I became the adopted daughter of my grandfather-in-law. Should anything happen to my grandfather-in-law, who became a father to me, I intend to take care of him until the end. Now, gardening together is so much fun that we can't get enough of it.
Dad, look at this radish. It's huge.
It's like Emily's leg.
Oh, Dad. In the midst of the sunlight, warm moments flow. I wish these days could last even a day longer.